Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening.
Wherever you are in the world.
Whatever time zone you are waking up in or maybe winding down in. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Sunny, and my oat milk latte is fully caffeinated. The foam is just perfect today, and I am so ready to roll.
And I'm Joe. I've got my stack of clippings here. My reading glasses are perched precariously on my nose. And I am, as always, ready to be the brakes to your engine. Welcome back, Sip and Talkers.
We are so happy to have you here with us. And of course, we have to start with the big one.
The elephant in the room.
Exactly. Happy Lunar New Year. May your inspiration be as, plentiful as red envelopes and your life as rich and delicious as the reunion dinner.
Happy New Year to you, too, and to everyone listening. And it's funny, happy is such a simple word, isn't it? Just two little syllables.
Yeah.
But looking at the state of the internet this past week, having a peaceful, let alone happy New Year seems to be getting increasingly difficult.
Not kidding. I made the mistake of doom scrolling through social media yesterday.
Yeah. Mistake number one.
Big mistake. Never read the comments before coffee. And the comment sections are just, they're on fire. It's not even about the food or the parties anymore. It's this intense, really aggressive fighting over the name.
Yes. The classic Chinese New Year versus Lunar New Year debate. It's become an annual tradition, it seems.
It's not just a debate anymore, though. It's a full-blown battlefield. I saw one comment that had, thousands of likes, and it literally said, if you don't call it Chinese New Year, you are betraying your ancestors.
Wow.
And then just, 5 comments down, someone else is screaming in all caps, stop stealing my culture! It honestly felt like I needed to show my ID card just to double-tap a picture of a dumpling.
It's intense. And actually, here's a question for you to kick things off.
Okay, hit me.
If I eat a taco in Tokyo, am I Mexican?
No. You're just a guy in Tokyo with, really good taste in food.
Okay. What if I wear a trench coat? Does that make me British?
No. It just makes you, hopefully, sting dry.
Exactly. We intuitively know that, right? Eating a taco doesn't change your passport. But this week, something in the logic of the world seems to have shifted. What we're seeing online is this fundamental change in how people view culture.
Yeah, it's not just about what you do anymore.
Right. It's about who you are and, more importantly, who you owe allegiance to.
It feels like we're all walking through a minefield. And I guess that is exactly what we're going to do today. We are going to navigate the minefield of cultural identity.
We sure are. Now, if you've been with us for a while, you might remember our show from last year, episode 58, The Battle of Names.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
We covered the science of the calendar back then.
Right, we talked about all the moon phases, the solar terms, the real astronomy of it all.
Exactly. That was the hardware discussion.
But today we're talking about the software. We're talking about the sociology of it. What we are witnessing is this global battle for what academics call cultural interpretation rights.
Cultural interpretation rights. Okay, that sounds heavy. It is heavy. It's essentially the fight for cultural sovereignty. It's about asking, who owns a tradition, who gets to define it, and maybe most importantly, who gets to police it.
So it's the idea of, if you don't call it my way, you're the enemy.
Precisely. And it is not just about the new year. Today, we're going to expand the view. We're going to look at how this battle's playing out across all of East Asia.
With the food, the clothing.
The history. And we're also going to look at the big player across the ocean, the U.S., and how Hollywood and even AI are getting involved in defining culture for the rest of the world.
Okay, so grab your coffee, grab your tea, or whatever you're sipping on. Our mission today is to try and figure out, is culture a wall that keeps people out, or is it a bridge that brings people together?
Let's start with the most immediate battlefield, the Lunar New Year.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the rhetoric online is getting, frankly, a little scary. You have people seriously saying, if you don't want to be Chinese, don't celebrate Chinese New Year. It's this logic of, if you participate, you must pledge allegiance.
It is a fascinating, if troubling, logic. But let's start with a deep dive into the mechanism itself, just so we are all on the same page. Why do we even have this confusion?
Right. Is it the moon? Is it the sun? What's the deal?
It's both. The traditional calendar we're talking about is a lunisolar calendar. In Chinese, it's often called the Nongli, which means the agricultural calendar.
Agricultural. Okay, that's a key word right there.
It is. This wasn't just invented for parties or red envelopes. It was, at its core, survival technology. The calendar tracks the phases of the moon to determine the months.
That's the loony part.
That's the loony part. But a lunar year is shorter than a solar year by about 11 days. So if you only followed the moon, your festivals would drift. Eventually, you'd be celebrating the Harvest Festival in the middle of winter. You'd starve.
That makes sense. The seasons would get all out of whack.
Exactly. So the ancient astronomers in the Huaxia civilization, what we now call China, they were brilliant. They integrated the solar terms, or zheqi. There are 24 of them.
Like waking of insects or grain rain.
Those are the ones. These track the sun's position to tell farmers exactly when to plant, when to harvest, when to expect certain weather. It was a masterpiece of science.
So this is a brilliant piece of ancient engineering. And it originated in the Central Plains of China. I don't think anyone really disputes that part.
No one.
Yeah.
That is the source code. You want to use a tech analogy.
Yeah, I like that.
But here is where the friction starts. Over thousands of years, that source code was exported. It went to the Korean Peninsula, it went down to Vietnam, it went to the Ryukyu Islands. And just like open source software, the local users, they patched it, they modified it.
They forked the code.
They absolutely forked the code. Take Vietnam, for instance. They celebrate Tet. It happens at the same time, generally. But the rituals are totally distinct. They aren't eating dumplings, they're eating banchungs, which are these strictly square, sticky rice cakes wrapped in banana leaves. They decorate with yellow apricot blossoms, not red lanterns.
And in Korea, it's seollal. They have the tteokguk, the rice cake soup, and the whole vibe is different, right? It's much more solemn. It's about bowing to elders, the sebe.
So imagine you're a Korean person. You are celebrating seollal. You're practicing rituals that your family has evolved pretty much independently for 1,000 years on the Korean Peninsula. And someone walks up to you and says, "Hey, happy Chinese New Year. You must be Chinese."
It feels, I don't know, reductive. It feels like you're just ignoring that 1,000 years of distinct evolution.
It would be factually incorrect and, frankly, culturally insensitive. The analogy I always come back to is Christmas.
Okay.
Christianity originated in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Jesus was born in Judea. But if you celebrate Christmas in New York or in Tokyo, does that make you Israeli?
No, of course not.
Would anyone ever say, don't celebrate Christmas if you don't want to be Israeli? It sounds absurd.
Well, hang on. I have to push back a little there. Christmas is a religious holiday, at least originally. The New Year is often about ancestors and lineage. Isn't that a little more, I don't know, personal, more tied to ethnicity?
That's a very fair point. Ancestry is stickier than theology in some ways. But the mechanism of cultural spread is similar. The essentialist argument, the people screaming online, they're basically saying that the origin defines the essence forever. They believe that because the calendar started in China, anyone using it is, by default, operating under a Chinese cultural umbrella.
Okay, so that's one side. What are the people saying Lunar New Year arguing for?
They are arguing for descriptivism. They are saying, look, this phenomenon has grown beyond its origin. Lunar New Year is just an umbrella term. It's inclusive. It acknowledges that 2 billion people...
2 billion? That number is wild.
It's huge. 2 billion people, including Vietnamese, Koreans, Singaporeans, Malaysians, and the massive global diaspora, are all celebrating, but they're doing it in their own distinct ways.
I was looking at the Pew Research Center data on this. The numbers are staggering. And that includes people in multi-ethnic marriages, people who converted, people who just love the culture. If you tell all those people, hey, this is exclusive property, show your ID, you're just shrinking your own audience. You're building a wall.
The New York Times actually analyzed this pretty deeply recently. They viewed this whole linguistic battle as a microcosm of rising nationalism globally.
It's a symptom of something bigger.
Exactly. It's not just about a calendar. It's about drawing borders in the mind. They pointed out that this demand for correct naming is really a way of demanding political loyalty, whether you realize it or not.
And didn't The Economist make a great point, too? They noted that using inclusive naming actually helps cultural transmission. It's like, if you make it easier for people to join in, the culture survives longer, it spreads.
Which brings us to the interim summary of this segment. If you try to build a closed wall around something as fluid and open as culture, you might think you're protecting it, but you're killing its vitality.
You're suffocating it.
You are reducing a rich, complex, civilizational heritage into a simple tool for political censorship.
It's like asking, do you want a museum piece that nobody can touch, or do you want a living tradition that evolves?
Exactly. And speaking of living traditions and intense fighting, let's hop on a virtual plane and head over to East Asia.
Let's do it.
Because if you think the comment sections are bad here regarding the calendar, the neighbors in East Asia are fighting over authenticity, with a level of drama that honestly puts Hollywood to shame.
Oh, the East Asian authentication wars. This is where it gets really, really spicy.
Let's talk about case study A, China versus Korea, the thief narrative.
This one is constant. It feels like every few months there's a new flare-up about something. Let's start with the clothes. Hanbok versus Hanfu.
Right. So for those who might not know, hanbok is the traditional Korean attire. You've seen it. High waistlines, flowing skirts, a very distinct silhouette.
Beautiful.
And hanfu is the traditional clothing of the Han Chinese, which has many different styles depending on the dynasty.
So what's the conflict?
The conflict is that recently there has been a huge movement in China to revive hanfu, which in itself is cool.
Totally.
But in doing so, some claims started popping up that hanbok is essentially just a variant of hanfu, specifically one influenced by the Ming dynasty. Or they'll say it's the costume of the ethnic Korean minority living within China's borders, and therefore it is Chinese culture.
And Korea obviously sees hanbok as a unique, independent evolution. Like, yeah, maybe there was some influence cultures borrow from each other all the time, but it evolved into something distinctly Korean.
The flashpoint was the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics opening ceremony. I'm sure you remember this.
Oh, I remember it vividly. There was that parade of people representing all the different ethnic groups in China, and there was a woman dressed in a traditional Korean hanbok carrying the Chinese flag.
And South Korea exploded.
It was politicians, citizens, celebrities. They accused China of cultural appropriation. They basically said, you are trying to claim our national identity as just a sub-branch of yours.
It really reflects a fundamental clash of mindsets. China operates on a unified culture mindset. Many ethnicities, one China. So to them, showing a Korean Chinese person in hanbok is a demonstration of inclusion. It's saying, you are part of our big family.
But for South Korea, a sovereign nation that has fought really hard for its cultural independence, seeing their national dress presented as a minority costume of another country, it felt like erasure.
It's the fear being absorbed of your unique culture just being rebranded as a regional variant of a larger one.
Exactly. And if you think clothes are sensitive, let's talk about something even more dangerous.
Food.
The kimchi wars.
The kimchi versus pao kai controversy. Now, this is one of my favorite examples because it shows how something incredibly boring like international bureaucracy can start a massive cultural fire.
It started with the ISO, right? The International Organization for Standardization.
Correct. The ISO is the body that decides, how big a screw should be or how bright a light bulb is. Super boring stuff. In 2020, China applied for an ISO certification for a dish called pao kai.
Okay, so what is pao kai exactly? How is it different from kimchi?
It's a delicious Sichuan dish. It's salted, fermented vegetables, usually cabbage, mustard greens. But here is the technical detail that really matters. Pao kai is fermented anaerobically. It is sealed in jars, no air.
Okay. And kimchi?
Kimchi, specifically the Korean style we all know, goes through a different process. It involves both aerobic and anaerobic stages. It breathes at certain points. The bacteria are different. The texture is different.
So they're like cousins, maybe?
Yeah.
They're definitely not twins.
Distant cousins is a good way to put it. But here's what happened. China got the certification for pao kai, ISO standard 24220, all very normal. But then the Global Times, which is a Chinese state-run media outlet, ran a headline.
And what did it say?
They essentially claimed that this certification proved that China was now the international standard for the entire kimchi industry.
Oh no, they poked the tiger.
They poked the tiger with a very sharp stick. They basically said, your national dish is actually just our dish, and by the way, we set the rules for it now.
The backlash must have been immediate. I remember reading that South Korea's agriculture ministry had to release an official statement.
They did. They had to break down the scientific differences we just talked about bacteria and fermentation.
But it wasn't just about bacteria, was it?
Not at all. It was about national pride. You have to understand, for Korea, kimchi isn't just a side dish. It is the national soul. They have a World Institute of Kimchi. They have a National Kimchi Day.
And for the record, UNESCO recognized kimjang, the communal tradition of making kimchi, as intangible cultural heritage for South Korea way back in 2013. But I guess the internet doesn't care about UNESCO dates when emotions are running this high.
It's that fear again, the fear of sinocentrism, the idea that the big neighbor views all the surrounding cultures as just satellites orbiting its own great civilization.
Okay, so let's move to case study B, China versus Taiwan. This is a little different. It's less about stealing and more about identity and representation.
The bubble tea.
The boba. You know, Taiwan uses bubble tea as this massive symbol of identity. You have the Milk Tea Alliance, right?
Right.
It represents localization, creativity, and a really distinct lifestyle in a democratic society.
And for listeners who don't know, the Milk Tea Alliance was this amazing online solidarity movement between netizens in Thailand, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. They bonded over their shared love of sweet tea and their shared desire for democracy.
It's just fascinating. A sugary drink became this powerful symbol of resistance. But on the flip side, of course, China views Taiwanese culture as a branch of Chinese culture. So in their view, bubble tea is just another Chinese drink.
But for Taiwan, it's so much deeper. It's part of a larger trend of desinicization. We see this in their education system, in their history books.
Right.
Congress and the Council on Foreign Relations have both noted this trend. Taiwan is increasingly emphasizing its unique history, its indigenous roots, the Japanese colonial influence, its democratic evolution. They are consciously building a distinct Taiwanese identity separate from the mainland.
And China sees that distinct identity as a direct threat to the One China principle. It plays out in high culture, too, not just drinks. The fight over the Palace Museum artifacts, who gets representation in UNESCO. It's this constant tug of war over who is the legitimate heir to the culture.
Indeed. And then we have our final case study from the region, China versus Japan. This one shifts the tone a bit. It's less about who invented it.
Because everyone pretty much acknowledges the ancient flow of culture from China to Japan.
Exactly. This is more about historical narrative and memory.
This is the heavy stuff, the textbooks.
Textbooks are a major battlefield.
Yeah.
China frequently accuses Japan of whitewashing WWII atrocities, things like the Nanjing Massacre, Unit 731. They feel Japan has never fully atoned or documented the reality of what happened.
And then you have the Yasukuni Shrine visits. Every single time a Japanese official visits that shrine, it's viewed in China, and in Korea too for that matter, as honoring war criminals.
Then you add the modern territorial disputes on top of that. The Diaoyu or Senkaku Islands, it's this toxic mix of unresolved history and very current sovereignty issues.
But here's the crazy part to me. Despite all of this, the textbooks, the islands, the screaming matches online, the trade between China and Japan was massive. Last year, we're talking around $300 billion.
Money talks, but cultural friction screams. It just goes to show that economic interdependence doesn't automatically cure cultural resentment. You can buy cars from each other and still fight bitterly over history books.
So we've got East Asia in this really tangled web of that's mine, no, that's mine, and you're lying about our shared history. But we can't just sit here and point fingers at Asia.
No, we can't.
Because there's a giant elephant in the room, and it's wearing a Captain America costume.
The American hegemony?
The global interpretation rights.
You're absolutely right. We often look at these origin wars in Asia and think, wow, that's so intense. But the U.S. plays a completely different game. We don't usually fight over origins. We dominate through standardization and, more recently, political correctness.
We take the culture, we repackage it, and then we sell it back to the entire world. Let's talk about Hollywood.
Hollywood is the ultimate cultural filter. For decades, the big issue was whitewashing. You had white actors playing Asian roles. Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Ugh, cringe. Absolute cringe.
But now, in the last few years, we've shifted to what some critics call overcorrection or forced diversity. We see historical figures or well-established fictional characters being race-swapped. Take the recent controversy over the docudrama about Cleopatra.
Oh, right. The Netflix show. They cast a black actress to play Cleopatra, and the Egyptian government was not happy.
They were furious. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities released official statements saying this is a falsification of Egyptian history. They argued that all historical evidence points to Cleopatra being of Macedonian Greek descent.
So you have this huge clash. You have the actual inheritors of the history, the Yuchins, saying this is inaccurate. And you have the American production company basically saying your historical accuracy is less important than our modern American narrative of inclusion.
That is cultural imperialism 2.0. It's not forcing people to speak English at gunpoint anymore. It's forcing people to adopt American socio-political frameworks to tell their own stories. We're projecting 21st century American racial dynamics onto ancient Egypt.
It's this form of soft power that says, we define what progress looks like, and you have to follow along, even if it contradicts your own history.
It is. And then there's the other side of the coin. Commercialization as colonialism.
Oh, this is the Hallmark holiday effect. I know this one well.
Think about Halloween or Christmas. In their origins, these were deeply religious or spiritual events. All Hallows Eve, the Nativity.
No. It's candy, it's costumes, it's Santa, and it's shopping. So much shopping.
And that version, the American commercial version, is the one that gets exported and that global youth adopt. You can go to Tokyo or Shanghai or Dubai in December, and what you see is the American version of Christmas.
It strips away the cultural or religious core, it's a dilution, the original meaning gets lost, and it just becomes a party.
And here is where it gets really interesting, and maybe a little frightening. The AI frontier.
This is the ultimate interpretation, right? Because who is building the brains of the future?
Right now, it's OpenAI, it's Google, it's mostly US-based companies. And these AI models are trained on these vast, vast amounts of data. But that data is overwhelmingly dominated by English language content and Western cultural perspectives.
So when I ask an AI what is beautiful or what is a universal value, it's giving me an American-centric answer.
Almost certainly. I was reading a paper on algorithmic bias just the other day. If you go to an image generator like Midjourney and you just type in a beautiful wedding, what do you think you get?
I'm guessing a white dress.
Yeah.
Kerchik, maybe?
You get a white dress, you get a church, you get Western aesthetics. You don't get a red kippah unless you specifically ask for it. You don't get a colorful Hindu ceremony unless you specify it. The default is Western.
That is huge. We are talking about non-Western logic and aesthetics potentially being marginalized by algorithms. It's like invisible colonization.
It is. It's a form of soft power that is so much harder to see than a flag or a soldier. But it shapes how the next generation thinks. If a kid in Bangkok asks an AI, "What is success?" the AI is far more likely to give a Western, individualistic, corporate answer, rather than, say, a community-focused or Buddhist-conflected answer.
So on one side, we have East Asia fighting over the past, who owns the robe, who owns the cabbage. And on the other, we have the U.S. fighting over the future, who defines the values, who writes the code.
Which brings us, finally, to the core philosophical question of this whole show.
Is culture a wall or is it a bridge?
That is the question. When we treat culture as exclusive property, when we say not Chinese, no New Year, we think we're protecting it. We think we're building this big, strong fortress to keep the thieves out.
But inside the fortress, the air gets really stale.
Exactly. You are suffocating it. You're killing the very thing you claim to love.
I want to go back to that analogy I mentioned earlier, the one about open source code.
Let's really dig into that. I think it's perfect.
Think about a piece of software like Linux. It's open source. Anyone in the world can see the code. Anyone can use it. They can fork it, which just means they take a copy and they modify it to make it better or just different for their own needs.
And because of that, because millions of people are working on it, the code gets incredibly robust. Bugs get fixed almost instantly. New features get added all the time. It lives. It evolves. It literally runs most of the internet today.
But if the original creator had locked it down and said, "No one touches this but me, this is proprietary," eventually, it would have become obsolete. The world would have just moved on and that code would have died.
That is a perfect analogy. And academics actually back this up. They've identified 3 major negative effects of cultural exclusion.
Okay, what are they?
First, you get a stagnation of creativity. If descendants are terrified of being called inauthentic, or even worse, traitors for trying something new, they stop innovating. The culture freezes in time and becomes a museum piece.
Second, I imagine, is the breakdown of communication.
Exactly. If culture becomes a political vetting tool, like show me your passport before you can wear this dress, or prove your loyalty before you celebrate this holiday, you push away people who are genuinely interested. You create enemies instead of allies.
And the third?
The third is civilizational isolation. If you look at history, the cultures that survived and thrived for millennia were the ones that absorbed and adapted. They were high inclusivity cultures. Think of the Roman Empire or the Tang Dynasty in China. They took things from everywhere. They didn't care about purity, they cared about vitality.
It's the human element at the end of the day. That's what matters. You know, if I eat a hamburger, I don't magically become American.
I hope not, otherwise I'd be in serious trouble given my diet last week. Far too many burgers.
And if I decide to wear a kippah because I think it's beautiful and elegant, it doesn't automatically mean I'm endorsing a specific regime or a political stance.
Culture should be an entry ticket. It should be an invitation to get to know each other. It shouldn't be a lock on the door to keep people out.
So what's the verdict then? How do we navigate this minefield without getting blown up?
I think moderate protection is necessary. Things like origin certification, acknowledging that champagne comes from the Champagne region of France, or that kimchi has deep Korean roots. That's good. It respects history. It gives credit where credit is due.
But extreme exclusion, the nationalism we see online.
That is deeply harmful. That turns a beautiful heritage into a political weapon. And nothing good ever comes from that.
I think my final takeaway is this. Whether you say Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year or Selal or Tet, the point isn't the specific syllables coming out of your mouth. The point is the people sitting next to you. It's the shared food. It's the hope for a better year ahead.
Culture is for living, not for arguing. I think that's a good mantra to end on.
I love that. Let's make that the new rule of the internet.
We can try. Now, before we go, a quick disclaimer. Today's discussion was an objective look at facts, at international perspectives, and at media reports from all sides. Sip&Talk stands for critical thinking. We are not endorsing any specific political group, and we certainly do not condone discrimination against any people.
We are just here to sip, talk, and maybe pop a few bubbles in our bubble tea, regardless of who actually invented it.
And speaking of good content, please make sure to subscribe to the Sip&Talk podcast if you haven't already. We have some really fascinating shows coming up for you.
And a huge, huge shout out to our old friend Mickey. You have to go subscribe to his YouTube channel. It's called Mickey to Life. He has a new travel vlog out that is just absolutely stunning. He's out there bridging cultures for real, eating everything, talking to everyone. It's pure joy to watch.
Definitely check that out. He's doing some great work. A true cultural bridge builder.
All right, friends. Take care of yourselves out there. Please don't fight in the comment sections. Go eat something delicious.
See you next time.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.